The Mass Effect Legendary Edition has arrived, and one of the biggest decisions that you will make when starting the series is what class to play as this will affect your overall experience with the game. This video series is designed to give you an in-depth look into each class so that you can make the most informed choice to match your preferred playstyle. In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive look at the Sentinel class and everything it has to offer, as well as looking at how the class evolved across the trilogy, and some tips and advice and some of the best companions that pair nicely with this class. The Sentinel is your quintessential jack of all trades and one of the most well-rounded of the 6 classes available. Able to use both biotic and tech abilities, their role is to debuff and disrupt opponents while using their advanced healing skills to defend allies. Though they do not have as many tech powers as engineers or as many biotic powers as adepts, and they lack the weapons training and ammo powers of the combat classes, still their various powers each have multiple uses, and their strong defensive capabilities allows them to endure long bursts of gunfire and intense fights. The Sentinel's biggest strength is the variety of skills at their disposal. They are unique in that they bring both tech and biotic abilities to the battlefield, meaning they are effective in dealing with both synthetic and organic enemies, making them incredibly versatile and good in just about any situation. They do have some major weaknesses though. Sentinels can only use light armor in Mass Effect 1, giving them reduced damage protection and leaving them heavily reliant on their shields and barrier. They also receive no advanced weapons training and rely almost exclusively on the mid to long range weapon, the pistol. In the original Mass Effect, the Sentinel only has access to one weapon. Knowing how to use it effectively is key. Good at mid to close range, the pistol can provide a good degree of damage and accuracy, especially once you have unlocked the marksman ability, which when activated provides improved fire rate and accuracy, as well as reducing overheating. It is a good idea to use marksman as often as you can to get some high powered and accurate shots in from further afield, allowing you to keep some safe distance between you and your targets, while still doing a good degree of damage and being in range to use your abilities effectively. The Sentinel has access to a range of class talents, providing stat buffs and abilities which are extremely useful. First up is Throw. This pushes movable objects in a targeted area away. Heavy objects and enemies like Krogan will require a stronger push to be knocked down, and players will need to spec into the tree to increase the force, accuracy and recharge speed of the move. Throw has a strong effect on airborne enemies and pairs well with abilities like Lift and Singularity, allowing you to push enemies further away. It's worth noting though that the move has no effect on flying enemies like drones. Throw is one of the most useful abilities in the Sentinel's arsenal. Once upgraded, it offers great crowd control and can provide the necessary breathing space needed against multiple enemies. Lift works exactly as it sounds. It lifts enemies or objects in a targeted area for duration of time. When the duration ends, the targets are dropped and will take damage based on how far they have fallen. Spending points into this tree reduces the recharge time and accuracy cost and increases the effect radius and duration of the move. An additional bonus worth noting is the fact that husks die instantly when they are lifted off the ground, and if a Krogan is in the air when they are killed, their health won't regenerate. Plus, a floating Krogan looks pretty hilarious. Similar to the other power-heavy classes like the Adept and Engineer, Sentinels are only able to equip light armor, offering very limited and reduced damage protection. To offset this, the Sentinel has a number of biotic moves to boost their defense. Barrier, when used, creates additional shields on top of those provided by armor. Additional points spent into this tree increases the amount of shields added by Barrier and extends the duration effect. It is a good idea to have Barrier active as often as possible, and especially when moving out of cover. The second defensive biotic power at their disposal is Stasis. This move places a target in stasis for a period of time, disabling their movement abilities and weapons. It's a very useful talent if you need to keep an enemy, especially a powerful one, on the sidelines for a few seconds. However, the power does have one limitation. Any enemy in stasis is immune to direct damage, though this can be changed when speccing into the stasis specialization. Unlocking this talent and putting only a few points here would still provide sufficient breathing room in most situations, and can definitely be a lifesaver in difficult fights. In terms of tech talents, the Sentinel has access to Decryption. This allows the player to access higher level terminals and unlock caches with more valuable mods, weapons and armor. It also increases the damage done by the explosions of tech talents. Spending points into this tree also unlocks the Sabotage skill, which deactivates an opponent's weapon, preventing them from firing back. This, if targeted right, can disable the weapons of multiple attackers, so aim carefully. Sabotage can also be used to blow up fuel tanks and containment cells for environmental damage. The electronics tree increases shield strength. Given that the Sentinel relies so heavily on their shield due to their reduced health when compared to the other classes, it's a good idea to level this tree up as soon as possible. Spending points into this tree also unlocks the Overload skill, which when used disables enemy shields, allowing you to directly attack an enemy's health. The Overload ability is extremely useful against synthetic enemies, and once a synthetic enemy's shields are down, using Overload is a great way to disrupt it further. As the Sentinel's combat very much revolves around debuffing and staggering the enemy and supporting your team, they also have access to the Medicine talent. Medicine improves the cooldown time for Medigel, so you will be able to use it more often, and as you spec into it, eventually grants the Neural Shock ability, which paralyzes and damages organic enemies. Finally, as you level up, players can also choose to spend points into their Sentinel class talent and are eventually given the choice between one of two specializations. You have Medic. A long-range Sentinel will find the Medic class more useful for supporting the party with Neural Shock, while resurrecting the party members who are fighting at the front line instead of being in combat. The Medic specialization also allows you to use Medigel to revive squad mates in addition to Unity. Alternatively, there is Bastion. A close-range Sentinel will find the Bastion class more useful for protecting the party up close with Stasis and Barrier. The Bastion specialization is more suited for combat Sentinels who prefer getting up close and personal with their targets. Overall, the Sentinel is an incredibly well-rounded class. You will want to combine the Sentinel's tech and biotic powers in order to hit enemies the hardest. Combining Neural Shock, Lift and Throw can lead to an effective playstyle. Sentinels are good at protecting and keeping the party safe by disabling enemies with Stasis and Sabotage, and can use Overload to aid your party in destroying enemies by knocking out their shields. Overload and Sabotage are very effective talents against Geth, as they tend to be relatively heavily shielded and depend on ranged attacks. In short, using the Sentinel's powers to cover your squad is the best way to go. When it comes to choosing the right squad mates in Mass Effect, there are a few things to consider. The Sentinel should have at least one squad member to make up for their lack of combat ability. The most obvious squad members for supporting Sentinels are Wrex and Ashley for the heavy combat support and protection that they offer. They can deal a large amount of damage, and Wrex's biotic abilities can be especially useful, with Stasis and Throw providing options for crowd control, and Warp an extremely useful debuffing move against enemies' health, armor and barriers. Wrex also has natural health regeneration from his Krogan Battlemaster tree, making him nearly impossible to kill. Both Wrex and Ashley also have a high amount of health, which means that they can take the aggro off you, acting as a first line of defense as you support from the back. Garrus adds some combat ability but doesn't have any skills apart from what the Sentinel already has. However, his Adrenaline Burst allows him to use talents more frequently than the Sentinel, allowing you to use his tech abilities like Overload and Sabotage while waiting for your own to recharge. In Mass Effect 2, combat is much more streamlined with an increased focus on simple skill trees and quickly selectable class powers. The franchise took a very definite move away from the more RPG-based skill progression of the first game to a more action-orientated cover system and fluid combat, which is very much geared around weapons, class powers, and synergies. In Mass Effect 2, the main changes for the Sentinel include that they now have access to more weapons and some new powers, which recharge a lot quicker thanks to the new global cooldown, allowing them to disrupt enemies more easily in battle. In ME2, Sentinels can use submachine guns, heavy pistols, and heavy weapons, greatly improving their ability to dish out damage. They also gain access to the game-changing Tech Armor ability, which makes the Sentinel a lot more effective and durable in combat. As combat in Mass Effect 2 can be intense, the Sentinel is still best when behind cover, providing support with powers and weapons fire. Their powers are great at taking down shields, keeping enemies tied up, and dealing with both synthetic and organic enemies alike. Using powers to keep enemies at a distance is still the best way to stay alive and help your squad mates deal with enemies, and using every power at your disposal is still key, and the game provides a variety of new powers to give you plenty of options in combat. Overload returns and continues to act as the Sentinel's primary means of stripping shields and disposing of unprotected synthetics. Overload is also one of their quickest powers in that it hits its target instantly when used. However, unlike many of the class's other moves, it cannot be arced around corners and over cover, meaning that it is most effective when enemies are out in the open and should be used strategically. In Mass Effect 2, Overload is also capable of detonating explosive crates and will make most unprotected enemies with flamethrowers explode instantly, allowing you to dispose of these dangerous foes quickly and with ease. Warp is back, but has now changed from a debuff move into a straight up damage dealer to complement throw and provide options for damaging abilities. Warp is the Sentinel's main biotic offense for multiple reasons. First, at just rank 1, Warp already can be used to permanently shut down enemy health regeneration, making it very useful against Krogan or Vorcha. Second, it is potent against armor, although not quite to the degree of Incinerate, and against biotic barriers. Lastly, if the target is affected by another biotic ability such as pull or slam, it will detonate on the target, causing damage in a radius and knocking back enemies nearby. The Sentinel cannot detonate a warp without help from an ally, however, as throw has no duration and thus can't be detonated. Throw returns and continues to be one of the Sentinel's best and quickest crowd control moves and has many applications. For example, reducing a target's mass with pull allows throw to launch foes against walls or over nearby ledges more forcefully. Defensively, throw can stop charging enemies or simply disable a target. Offensively, it can slam an enemy into objects for damage and even has a few instant kill possibilities. Frozen targets thrown at an object may shatter, meaning that it synergizes nicely with the Sentinel's newest move, Cryoblast. When activated, Cryoblast fires a mass of supercooled particles which snap freezes targets within a certain radius. This power is most useful against unprotected enemies and completely ineffective against protected enemies with shields or armor. It's recommended therefore to use Overload or Warp to weaken the target first, and then once vulnerable, shoot out Cryoblast, allowing you to slow their movement and freeze them in place as you and your squad mates unload with your weapons and powers to take them down. Like Warp, Cryoblast can be arced around cover. It's also worth noting that even a rank 1 Cryoblast is a one-hit kill on Husks, making this a useful ability as Husks will charge your position and it's easy to become overwhelmed. The Sentinel's signature power though, and arguably its most useful one, is the new tactical armor, which is a real game changer for the class, opening up more tactical options and allowing the Sentinel to survive longer and play more aggressively. A power that perfectly represents the Sentinel's mixed abilities, Tech Armor is both an offensive and defensive move. Tech Armor, when activated, generates an energy armor suit that boosts the user's shields. Considering that most enemies will be much more attracted to the commander than your squad mates, having a powerful, unique defensive power really gives the Sentinel an edge on higher difficulties. Unlike Barrier, Fortification or Geth Shield boost, Tech Armor remains active until it is destroyed, the mission ends, or you load the game. On the occasions when it does get destroyed, it sends out a very large pulse of energy, knocking back and damaging enemies within a certain radius. This reactive damage is very useful when facing melee enemies such as Husks or Varren, especially as they tend to swarm in large numbers. Tech Armor also refills Shepherd's shields to maximum upon activation, meaning that it can be used to regenerate your shields once they are downed, granting superior survivability. Finally, starting at rank 3, Tech Armor also resets ally cooldowns when activated, letting a Sentinel's allies use their powers much more frequently. At rank 4, Tech Armor can be upgraded into either Assault or Power Armor. Assault Armor focuses on increasing the force, radius and damage of the pulse when the armor is destroyed. It also gives the added bonus of an additional shield boost if enemies are still alive following the explosion. Power Armor, on the other hand, focuses on increasing your power and weapon damage when the armor is activated. The new Tech Armor gives the Sentinel arguably the greatest survivability of any class. Finally, the Sentinel has access to the Passive Defender tree. This class ability reduces the cooldown timer on powers, increases Shepherd's health, and gives a negotiation bonus by boosting Paragon and Renegade points. Both of Defender's evolved forms have advantages depending on your preferred playstyle, and they fit in well with the Sentinel's other abilities. The choice in evolution here is similar to the choice on Tech Armor. Do you focus more on powers or guns for damage? Raider's damage boost makes up for the slightly longer cooldowns on Warp and Overload, and is useful for a Sentinel focused on using those powers to maximum effect. If you use powers more for utility and focus on guns for damage, or if you simply prefer using powers more often, then Guardian is always a great choice. Mass Effect 2 massively expands the roster, giving you 13 possible squad mates, although 2 of these are permanent DLC additions and 1 is a temporary squad member, only available for the duration of the DLC content. This is still a huge increase over Mass Effect 1's 5 possible companions. Squadmate abilities in ME2 though are much more streamlined compared to ME1, where each squadmate had 8 talents. Companions in ME2 have only 2 base powers and 1 loyalty power that unlocks after completing their loyalty mission. One of these powers can also be mapped to a shortcut prompt, usually right or left on the D-pad, allowing you to activate the ability without the need to pause the action, making combat more fluid and action focused. When it comes to choosing the best squad mates in Mass Effect 2, as we know, Sentinels are effective against all types of defense, armor, barriers and shields. This affords you a great deal of flexibility in selecting your squad mates. Any combination of team members can be chosen without exposing the squad to any particular weakness, and the most effective teams are usually tailored to fight a specific type of enemy. You can still pick your party based on how you play your Sentinel. If you focus on guns for damage, have a bonus ammo power and you use assault armor, then allies focused on powers will be very useful to you. Your own damage will already be good, and you'll be resetting ally cooldowns every time you reactivate assault armor. Samara makes a great ally choice in this case, adding armor and barrier stripping with Reeve and crowd control with throw and pull. If you focused on powers, bringing 2 combat members is a good plan. Grunt, Legion and Jacob all add good damage to the squad while being resilient like you are, and each has useful powers. Zaid and Thane have very high damage bonuses too, and both can fight safely from range using sniper rifles while you draw the attention. Mass Effect 3 takes the combat from Mass Effect 2 and uses the same powers and cover-based system, but with some tweaks. Firstly, the game introduced a new weight capacity system, which affects players' power recharge times. The Sentinel, who likes to use their different powers in combination as often as possible, should aim to create a fast cooldown build by equipping low-weight guns, like pistols and SMGs, keeping their power recharge speed at or as close to 200%, thus allowing them to use their abilities more frequently. With some mods and speccing into specific skill trees though, the Sentinel can increase their weight capacity, which allows them more flexibility to use weapons that they may like or prefer. Next, let's talk about what remains the same. In terms of class powers, the Sentinel still has access to a number of returning active powers, including Throw, Warp, Cryoblast, Overload, and Tech Armor. Although Tech Armor does see some significant changes in Mass Effect 3, and as a result, the Sentinel itself plays quite differently. Tech Armor will no longer automatically detonate after your shields go down, but must be detonated manually instead. This changes up the way that you can use the power, turning it from a purely defensive ability into a definite offensive option. More aggressive Sentinels can run into crowds of enemies and purposefully detonate their shield, staggering targets and doing massive damage. Another less beneficial change to the ability though is that the Tech Armor now imposes a significant cooldown penalty of 50% on your other powers while active. In combination with the weight capacity system, all of this results in the Sentinel having two possible build options. One that focuses on weapons with the occasional power usage when needed, supplementing their defense with Tech Armor, and one that focuses on powers, trading durability for versatility. The cooldown penalty can be mitigated somewhat with the passive offensive mastery tree, which makes your powers faster and stronger, increases your weapons damage and dexterity and charisma. Its rank 2 and rank 5 also allows you to increase your weight capacity bonus to 70. Also, if you spec into the power recharge upgrade at rank 6 of the Tech Armor tree, this actually reduces the power speed penalty to a more manageable 30%. So I highly recommend getting this as soon as possible. The Sentinel also gains access to the new passive fitness tree, which provides improvements to your shield, health, and melee damage. The Sentinel's fitness ability at rank 5 is also capable of increasing your squad mates' health and shields by 30%, making them significantly more durable. Finally, just like many of the other classes, the Sentinel gains access to a special class-specific grenade. In this case, lift grenades. Once thrown, these will send enemies flying and deal high damage. The benefit of these grenades is that they don't rely on a power cooldown, so you can use them at any time as long as you have the ammo, which can be increased to give you up to 4 grenades if you spec into this tree. Each class power can actually be leveled up to rank 6, and the third game in the trilogy takes a turn towards more RPG based skill progression, as after rank 3 each subsequent rank has 2 possible branches, allowing players to customize Commander Shepard to their preferred playstyle. One of the biggest changes to Mass Effect 3 though was the introduction of power combos. These require 2 different powers to activate, a primer and a detonator. Primers determine which of the 4 types of power combos will be primed, and once detonated cause a massive explosion and increased damage. The 4 types of power combos available are Fire, Cryo, Tech, and Biotic. Biotic explosions do 2 times normal damage against barriers and armor. Enemies killed by cryo explosions shatter without leaving a corpse, and enemies caught in the blast radius but not killed or frozen can be chilled and have their movement speed slowed by 30%. Tech bursts create a blast of electricity that inflicts severe damage on the shields and health of nearby enemies and have a chance to stun them. Tech Burst also do 2 times normal damage against shields. And finally, fire explosions create a blast of flames that inflicts damage against the armor and health of enemies. Fire explosions also do 2 times normal damage against armor. I won't go into too much detail on the different combinations possible here, as they are numerous, but I will flash up a couple here on screen for you to see. Given their access to both tech and biotic abilities, with the right squad mates, the Sentinel is likely one of the best equipped classes for creating power combos, with their moveset allowing them to effectively chain together every type of combo available. Warp, Overload and Cryoblast are excellent primers, and Warp, Overload and Throw can also act as quick detonators too. Warp is definitely at the center of the Sentinel's unique ability to chain power combos, due to its ability to detonate a tech burst and prime a biotic explosion in a single use. Casting Overload, Warp and Throw in succession will devastate shielded enemies even on Insanity, doing a tech burst to strip their shields, followed by a biotic explosion which rips into their health bar. Overload, once upgraded, gains the ability to jump from multiple enemies, making a great crowd control weapon, and in some circumstances a means of detonating up to 3 cryo explosions simultaneously. It also can create a tech burst when the same enemy is hit by a warp, throw or a lift grenade. Chaining together multiple power combos can be devastating to groups of enemies and looks, sounds and feels incredible too. If you enjoy the new power combo system in Mass Effect 3, then you will love the Sentinel. Overall, the Sentinel is an incredibly versatile class, able to adapt to any situation and presents plenty of scope to try out different builds and different playstyles. A focus on defense can make you a walking tank and act as a support class, working in the back and managing your squad mates. Choosing a more offensive tech armor will allow you to play as a more aggressive class, with your squad mates supporting you. Or you could forgo tech armor entirely and focus on your other powers. Between Warp and Overload, you have a very effective way to deal with all types of protections. This effectively makes you an Engineer Adept hybrid. This caster style approach isn't as durable due to the lack of tech armor, but the number of power combos that you can create definitely make up for it. Though the Sentinel has plenty of powers at their disposal, it's always a good idea to bring 2 squad mates with you that also give you plenty of useful options in terms of primers and detonators, and you have plenty to choose from, as Mass Effect 3 gives you 7 regular and 11 temporary squad mates as part of the story. Each has 4 active and 1 passive power. The Sentinel is a very versatile class that can combine well with a lot of squad mates. Bringing Liara, Kaidan or Javik will allow you to set up powerful biotic detonations. In particular, the Warp and Reeve detonation combo can deal heavy damage to tough armored enemies such as Atlas mechs, Banshees and Brutes. Bringing EDI allows you to set up powerful tech explosions with Overload and Incinerate. Tali can provide a tech burst option with Energy Drain followed by an Overload from Shepard, and render enemies vulnerable to tech and weapon damage with Sabotage. And bringing Ashley, James or Garrus allows you to have a powerful combatant on your team and gives you access to their grenades and ammo powers. So there really is no right or wrong choice here, and it generally does depend on your preferred playstyle, but certainly you have lots of freedom here to mix it up and try different team combinations out. So there you have it. There is everything that you need to know about the Sentinel class. Before jumping into the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, let me know what you think of the Sentinel, and if you have any more questions about the class, feel free to post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Hope you guys found this video useful and informative. If you did, remember to show your support by liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing. And that is the end of my class guide series. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this series as much as I enjoyed researching and making each video. Thank you to everyone for all your support, comments and feedback on the videos, and I hope they helped to get you ready for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. See you in the Milky Way galaxy, everyone. Have a great week, guys and girls, and as always, happy gaming. I should go.